Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell, and today's podcast is about, is it a method or is it madness? Does it make sense or is it nonsense? And specifically, I'm going to be talking about the bench press today. What could be controversial about the bench press? Well, maybe nothing, but let's listen and find out. Today's podcast is brought to you by Jonathan and Lynn Gilden at the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. I'm telling you right now, they are simply the best agents in our area. They can be reached at thegildengroup.com. Check the show notes and you can get a link to locate them. All right, so the glorious bench press. I was speaking with a client this morning about how that's the obsession of the male youth. I almost said the Yale Muth. The Yale Muth. Have you ever heard of that species? Let me tell you, they're right up there with us. So anyway, the male youth is obsessed with the bench press when we start to get old enough to strength train. And, rightly so in some regard, it does give you a great indication of upper body strength. And I could tell you I spent plenty of times in my garage rolling that bar down my chest because I got stuck and I was way too stupid to get a spotter at the time and, kind of overestimated my strength. I think it happened to the best of us. But the bench press, can it be a great exercise? So let's talk about it. As I mentioned before in previous podcasts, but I will review again because it's important to know, when you begin a strength training program, we should always focus on the basic movements that are going to make you stronger. And we know that now. There's been a lot of great research on what we need to be doing. Essentially, we need to have an upper body push or pushing into our routine or routines, and I'll get into that. It can vary. We need to have upper body pulling in our routines. We need to have some form of a squat in our routine, and I covered the squat the other day. It is a great exercise. We also need some lower body pulling. That's like a deadlift and a hinge exercise. We should also have some core, but not the kind of core you always think about, but more stability core. Things like planks and even more importantly, obliques. And it's good to have some lunges or single leg exercises in our routine. So it really comes down to that. Those are like the basics. And then from that, all these different routines can be made. There could be split routines where you do several of those motions in one particular day. For example, a lot of pushing or chest exercises. There could be another day where it's a lot of pulling or back exercises, or it could be all done with a full body workout. So there's been so much debate back and forth as to what's better, and really there isn't a better. It's more what works for you into your schedule and focusing on quality, not quantity. I can say that when you start to increase volume way too much, there's a huge issue with the point of diminishing returns. So really it comes down to more quality. I'm more of a believer in less is more when it comes to strength training and not trying to do too much volume. But that's not for today's podcast. I've covered that before. I'm sure I'll cover it again. Today I want to talk about the bench press. So that's one of the major pushing motions that we can do. So when I say pushing, that means essentially a horizontal press, okay? So when we're saying horizontal, there are three planes to the body. There's the horizontal or coronal plane. That means the gravity is fighting you downward. Gravity is always fighting you downward, but you are essentially laying on your back, or you've got a machine or some kind of mechanism that's allowing you to push from behind you to in front of you. That is the horizontal plane, okay? There's the sagittal plane. That divides your body into right and left. And in those types of motions, it's only going to be flexions and extensions. So for example, like a leg extension is done in the sagittal plane. It's all regards to how you are positioning your body against gravity. All right, so leg extension, bicep curl, tricep extensions, those are all sagittal plane exercises. And finally, there's the frontal plane, and that divides your body into anterior and posterior. Exercises like that would be anything to the side, such as shoulder raises or tube walks or leg abduction, things like that. Okay, so a pressing motion is done normally from the horizontal plane. So there's nothing more horizontal than laying on your back, right? So the bench press is a great exercise for that. Basically, you are pressing a barbell. That's what I'm talking about, a traditional bench press first. You are pressing a barbell from your chest up over the top of you, keeping it located over your chest and locking out your elbows. There's a lot of great things about the basic bench press. It's quantitative, so you really can measure it. And the National Strength and Conditioning Association has all these norms for normal people through all the different forms of athletics. In other words, you can look up and see how you would do with the bench press compared to an NBA basketball player or football player or somebody your age. So you can quantify it, which is kind of cool. I mean, in reality, what does that really tell you? But some people like to have goals like that. I have a client who, wants to know how he's doing against the norm. And so that gives us an opportunity to measure it. And in his case, he is in the 90 percentile or higher. That's pretty darn good. So there's a way to measure that. It's typically against your body weight, strength to weight ratio. So in other words, it's not just about how much weight you can press, but how much weight you can press compared to your body weight. I've said many a times, okay, that bench press sounds great. Somebody says, I can bench press 400 pounds. Well, yeah, that's a lot of load. But then I ask, well, how much do you weigh, or how much does this person weigh? Oh, they weigh 380 and they play football. It's like, so they're only bench pressing 20 more pounds than their body weight. That's not very impressive. That's as impressive as a 100-pounder bench pressing 120. So it really, comes down to how much weight are you pressing compared to your body weight. When you get up into the elite athletes, though, then they give you numbers like they can bench press 200% of their body weight, so they can double their weight. So if they're 150 pounds, they can bench press 300 pounds. Now that's impressive. All right, so the biggest benefit to the bench press is the fact that it is quantifiable. And there's been norms, it's been studied through the test of time. But is it method or is it madness? Like, what are we really looking at? Is it the greatest way to measure upper body strength? I mean, probably not. It's a pretty awkward mechanic when you get down to it. So what are we really measuring against? It's tough to say. You're measuring it against other norms that have been created using the same model. So what are you really telling us? Are you that strong? I mean, that's a hard thing to try to figure out. And when somebody starts to master the test, well, are they sacrificing other things to get there? In other words, one of the assessments and measurements they use for the NFL combines is the bench press, 225-pound lift. That's a lot of weight, right? And what's funny is they always say they're assessing strength when they do this, but for some, yes, 225 pounds is a ton of strength. Now, strength is defined as the amount of load you can push one time. But these guys that go to the NFL combines, they can get up to over 30 repetitions. I believe the record might be 47. I'd have to look that up. I mean, that's incredible. 47 reps at 225 pounds. So that's not strength, that's endurance. Endurance is how many times you can do something over and over again. So it's kind of a weird assessment. But getting back to my original point, what are you doing to study for the test? You might be doing a ton of bench presses, and then you're going to be evaluated at the combines. And I get it, these kids, and I know some of these college football players, they'd love to just get one contract in the NFL because then they're going to get paid. So I get it. They want to get a contract. But at what cost? Because then maybe they're doing so much work that might be compromising their shoulders that they get hurt quicker. So the bench press can be fooled a little bit. Now, naturally, strength is strength, but at the same time, if you look at some people's technique, it's pretty bad, and it may count for an assessment, but at the same time, they've really learned how to cheat the test, so to say, and they've learned how to maybe not lock out or bounce it off their chest or whatever they're doing, and that could, of course, cause injury and manipulate the test. But if they know that they're not especially looking for that, they're going to go for it, and you can't blame them. Again, they want contracts. So, we have to look at what we're really trying to assess. All right, so that's the first thing. Does it really measure absolute upper body strength? I think it's an assessment. I'll leave it at that, an assessment. The greatest? I don't know that there is the greatest. It's, strength is still kind of a hard thing to measure, really, till you need it. So the second good thing about the bench press is the fact it's basically easy to do, and barbells aren't that expensive compared to selectorized equipment. And it's, once you figure it out, it's pretty easy as far as knowing the form. You go down, you go up. It's pretty quantitative that way too. And again, barbells are pretty inexpensive when you compare them to selectorized machines. So you can get a nice bench press set for well under, say, $500 if you just get the bar, the bench, and the plates. But a chest press machine is going to cost you around $3,000, and that's just at least $3,000, and that's just for the machine. Where the barbell, you can do other things. So, it's kind of cost effective. Now, is it a good exercise? Yes. I like to teach it at my gym with some of the younger kids, not because I think it's the best chest exercise in the world, because I don't, but because I know the younger kids are going to be confronted with the bench press. It's just going to happen. Even the ones I've trained for particular sports, and I tell them, hey, tell your strength and conditioning guys at school that you're working with the trainer, and so maybe don't do this or that, but that's impossible. Number one, that's not going to work. The strength and conditioning people are going to be like, yeah, whatever, you're just trying to get out of this. So it doesn't work. The kids are going to have to do what they have to do at school. I've learned that, and that's okay. And honestly, I don't want to step on coaches' toes anyway, because I only know a small fragment of what the kid's doing, and it's really not my place to tell them not to lift at school. So I've gotten away from that, and now I know they're going to lift, so I want to make sure that they're lifting correctly with the bench press. So I always make sure that I teach it properly, teach the right way to do it, because it can be a good exercise when done correctly, okay? So that part it's a method. It's a method to get stronger. It's a method to get stronger for sure. It is a pushing exercise, as are push-ups, as are dips, as are dumbbell bench presses, as are selectorized chest press machines, as are hammer chest machines. So there's a lot of things you can do for the horizontal press. Now, I think there are better strength modes. I think the hammer strength is better. I think a lot of the chest press machines are better. I like dumbbells for a lot of people because you can get a greater range of motion with dumbbells, and you can turn your wrists and elbows in a manner to where it's easier on your shoulders. One of the biggest issues with the bench press is it locks you in a groove that you can't get out of. So your hands basically are placed where your palms are facing outward, right? You're with me, right? You're laying on the bench, your hands are on the bar, so your palms are placing outward. Well, let's say that affects your elbow or shoulder, which it could. We're all different. So as you're going down, you're locked into that plane of motion. You're locked there. So if it's uncomfortable, and I'm not meaning you're being a sissy or a wussy uncomfortable, I mean it's really causing some pain and discomfort, then you're not going to be able to build maximal strength on that because your body's too busy compromising for the fact that it's the wrong arc for you. So that's a problem with it. That's a problem with a lot of linear exercises like that. Now, take dumbbells. If that's the case, you can adjust your hands. You can rotate your palms in and out, kind of like you see with those perfect push-up motions. You can change it. So that makes it a little bit easier on the joints. I'm not saying, I will say that dumbbell bench presses are better for most people. Super strong guys, no, or gals, because they have to use an appropriate load for their strength levels. So to get those dumbbells in place, they have to use some compromising form to get them there. Now all of a sudden those, say, 80-pound dumbbells that you want to use, now you have to do kind of a curl to get it in position. And that's why you see some of these lunkheads at the gyms you may go to, never mind, you'd be thrown out in a heartbeat, but drop these dumbbells afterwards. That's because they're basically too heavy for them. They may be appropriate for the chest press, but getting them in position, they're not strong enough, and most people aren't. That's the only problem with the dumbbells. If you get so strong in that chest motion that you compromise your form to get there, not only can you make a lot of noise, you can get hurt. So then in that case, a hammer chest press machine is probably ideal, and push-ups are great doing more repetitions. All right, so now let me take on the next little method or madness. I hear people say sometimes, and it just drives me nuts. All right, so incline presses are only for one type of person, and flat presses are for another, and decline presses are for another. For those that don't know, incline presses are set at about 45 degrees. Flat presses are horizontal, and decline is simply lower than that. Okay, so say like a minus 30 degrees or so. So, and you'll hear them say, well, decline presses work your lower chest, flat presses work your medial or main part of your pectoralis major, and incline presses work upper chest. Okay, that is completely bullshit and simply madness or lunkheadedness. Okay, there's such a thing as when muscles fire, they fire all the way. So if you are stimulating your pectoralis major, whether it be through decline, incline, or flat presses, you are working your chest fibers all the way. One portion of the chest doesn't just work, then it turns on to the other one. I mean, how does that happen? It doesn't happen. That's lunkheadedness, okay? Now what does happen is this. If you're in an inclined position, okay, due to the position of your spine at 45 degrees, you're now engaging more of your deltoids, which are closely attached to your pectoralis major. So it sort of seems like it's more upper chest, but really what it is you're still engaging your chest, but you're also engaging your shoulders more than if you're horizontal. And if you go to a decline, you simply take your shoulders more out of it even than flat. Which is better? There is no better. What's better for you? Personally, for me, I love inclines. I don't know. It feels great on my shoulders. I'm able to get a nice deep stretch where my elbows drop below my sternum, which is great. I touch the bar right under my chin on top of my sternum, and I press up. It has always felt like a comfortable movement pattern for me, and I simply love incline presses a little bit more. But they're all good, whether it be horizontal, whether it be flat or decline. Do chest presses. Find the one that works absolutely best for you. I still do flat benches sometimes. Sometimes I take part in the senior games. Can't believe I'm saying that at the age of 56, but yes, powerlifting competition. Mostly just because I host it and I'd feel like kind of an asshole if I didn't participate. So I train a little bit for it, not a lot. It just means I might include more bench presses into my routine. I don't really push it a whole lot because I do think bench presses done basically with, I don't want to say bad form. My form's good, but straining and struggling can cause more tear on the rotator cuff that I particularly really care for. So, but I will train a little bit more for it. But I love incline presses. I love incline presses on the Smith machine, on the barbell dumbbells. Personally, I love the hammer strength chest machine. I love cable chest presses, which I had a client do today. I think he really enjoyed them. And I do love push-ups, you know. Don't forget, when in doubt and you don't have equipment, you can find these movement patterns that work. You just have to do more reps. You're not going to maximize strength gains doing 50 push-ups compared to doing 10 chest presses with a load. But you're certainly not going to decline either. And sometimes maintenance is really darn important, right? So I love push-ups too. So you just find what works and understand that it's the joint action that matters, all right? Little more science for you, then I'll wrap it up. All right, so the bench press or chest press, no matter what angle you're at, that's what drives me nuts with these people. It's like not upper chest, lower chest, mid chest. Stupid. Okay, the joint action is horizontal shoulder adduction with elbow extension. Remember I talked the other day that muscles have movement patterns? That's what it is for a chest press. So horizontal means you're on your back. Shoulder, so the main joint moving is the shoulder joint. Adduction, so that means as you're pressing up, your humerus is coming towards your body, because that's what adduction means. Abduct is the opposite, take away. And then we have the second motion, which is elbow extension, and the tricep extends your elbow. So any press motion horizontally is, again, horizontal shoulder adduction with elbow extension. All right? That could be bench press, chest press, incline, decline, cable press, push-up, whatever your heart desires. It's the same joint action. Find the one that works for you. So, is the bench press the most superior chest exercise? I just gave the answer. You're going to have to come to your own conclusion on that. And if you haven't picked up on the conclusion, re-listen. All right? Because I think I made the point. I love it all. But now you need to know the method, though. What is the method behind the madness? Like, why are you doing a certain exercise? Don't do it because people tell you it's the best. Don't do anything because people tell you it's best. Don't do what I tell you to do because I tell you it's the best. Research it. Listen to me. I hope you value my opinion or you wouldn't be listening. But if you have any questions, look it up. Look it up. There's nothing wrong with doing your own research. I do mine. If I listen to podcasts, and if I hear something I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting, I'm going to go look it up a little bit more. And then I'm going to say, oh, yeah, they were spot on. So hopefully you do that and find that I'm spot on. So, let me thank our second sponsors, the Istanbul Turkish Mediterranean Cuisine. They are awesome. They are in Ormond Beach, Florida, and they have great vegetarian options. They have great salads. Go in there and check them out, or place an order online at istanbulflorida.com. Until next time, be Max Fit and be Max Well.